Alright, how we doing, ladies and gentlemen? It is time for your annual Halloween special. Although, since Halloween is actually on a Friday this year, it's more like a bonus episode of the Friday Ramblings because it's still on Friday. It's okay. We got the Ghostbusters with us. We got the Happy Ghost with us. We're ready to talk about something that has become a major part of modern Halloween culture, and that is the haunted attractions. Now this, classically, they were referred to as haunted houses. But because some of them do take place outside, haunted corn mazes, haunted trail walks, not to mention the desire to not confuse them with houses that are allegedly haunted by real ghosts. Woo. Those who know my ramblings and know me know I've been in a couple houses that I wasn't sure of, and I am a bit of a believer in the supernatural. So the term is now generally termed haunted attraction to cover everything that they want to and not confuse you with things that they're not involved with. Now, again, for those of you who don't know, or just love that super basic breakdown, a haunted attraction is something designed, as the term attraction would mean, for entertainment purposes. Something to get your emotions reared up, to make you feel like you had a great time, and it's based around the idea of exploring something that is haunted. Supernatural, spectacular, spooktacular, as the classic pun goes. The classic versions of these have been houses or other forms of buildings, old abandoned warehouses. But, as we said at the start there, there have been places that, especially in the more rural areas, where you have haunted corn mazes, haunted trail walks, any variety of areas where you can, portion it off, section it off, and through the use of actors in makeup, animatronics, just classic props, and other things, pull people into your little fictional world for a few minutes and hopefully give them a few short-term frights and a lot of delights. In the Western world, haunted attractions typically operate from mid to late September into the 1st of November, with, of course, their peak activity being right there at Halloween, a couple days before. And the day after, of course. That nice little week. However, in the Eastern world, specifically in Japan, haunted attractions are generally done in the summer. Not because they celebrate Halloween in the summer necessarily, but because in Japan, the superstition is that you can outwit the summer heat with haunted attractions because they give you the chills. I know, it sounds kind of weird. If you're not part of that culture, sounds kind of silly, but that's their thing. Beat the heat by wandering around, especially at night, and doing something that sends shivers up your spine. More power to them. Again, we're not judging their culture, but we are admitting we are from a different culture. Takes us a bit of mental adjustment to appreciate where they're coming from. Happens to everybody. So, how far back does this go? Well, let's find out together. One of the first recorded purpose-built haunted attractions was the Orton and Spooner Ghost House, which opened in 1915 in Liphook, England. Based around the idea of a carnival funhouse, it was powered by steam and still exists as part of the Hollycombe Steam Collection, which is in southeast England, near the aforementioned Liphook. So let's do the math here, folks. That means we can verifiably trace back haunted attractions to 1915, which means we have over 100 years of fun with the horror. That's a good tradition. Once you pass 100 years, now you're a tradition. And of course, background for the creation of the Orton and Spooner Ghost House can be traced to 18th and 19th century London and Paris, when horror literature, performances by magicians, spiritualists, and psychics, as well as theatrical shows and attractions introduced the public to gruesome entertainment. Most of those were done, though, as your typical, like, traveling show, or it would just be, like with the magicians and the psychics, a single person on stage. So the haunted attractions were basically an expansion of that concept. Hey, let's make it more interactive. Hey, let's get the whole building in on it. See? You can trace the origins back. That's the beauty thing about everything. You can always trace it back to a simpler concept where somebody said, hey, that worked. Let's go a bit further. Let's expand upon the good idea. Of course, in 1802, Marie Tussaud scandalized British audiences with an exhibition of wax sculptures of decapitated victims of the French Revolution. Her exhibit still exists today as the Chamber of Horrors in Madame Tussauds in London. The Wax Museum, of course, is a super famous concept. Been some horror movies based around it. Woo, that's a whole nother video by itself one day, folks. Maybe next Halloween. But yes, even in the 1800s, the idea of wandering around someplace where you're looking at depictions of dead people that are realistic enough to creep you out existed. See? Little seeds all over the place. In France, from 1897, the Grand Guignol Theater was scaring audiences with graphically staged horror entertainment. And of course, there was also the Phantasmagoria show, the most well-known version of which was in 1797 Paris, which made the use of magic lantern projections and crude special effects. So, there we go. The first, what we would consider haunted attraction, traces back to 1915, but the concepts can go all the way back to, as we said, the 1790s. The Halloween-themed haunted houses popped up in America during the Great Depression, around the same time that trick-or-treating became the norm. During the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it was common for magicians to use supernatural themes in their stage performances, which evolved in the tradition of a traveling ghost show, also referred to as a spook show or creep show, occasionally incorporating comedy to help make sure it was not too scary, and thus you drive away your audience. The Haunted Mansion attraction opened in Disneyland in August of 1969, and to this day appears in every Disney theme park with different variants, and has become one of the most iconic attractions in Disney theme park history. They have actually made 3 movies based on the Haunted Mansion. The original one, which was an Eddie Murphy, very comedy driven. Then one in more recent years that had a wonderful ensemble cast and told a somewhat more serious story, but still had some good laughs in it. Because, I mean, they involved Danny DeVito. You bring Danny DeVito and you're going to have some good comedy. That's what Danny does, and that's why we love him. And a Muppet Haunted Mansion special made for Disney+. So good times. Good on ya. Knott's Berry Farm also began hosting its own Halloween night attraction, Knott's Scary Farm. And of course, in the 1970s, various Christian groups, including Jerry Falwell and Liberty University, introduced the idea of hell houses, which are haunted house adaptations focusing on basically mixing heaven and hell with the scared straight concept. The attractions are specifically arranged around, what would happen to you if you were a sinner and allowed your soul to go to hell. Using the frights to encourage daily good Christian values. A nice variant of haunted house. And of course, we also have, we cannot mention these many things without talking about, and again, I'll probably next year or two do a full-blown video on them, the king of all theme park Halloween haunted attractions, and that is Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, which has been going on for quite a good amount of time since, 1991, which means, yes, folks, we are talking 34 years, assuming you're watching this video when it came out. If you're watching it in a few years, got to do it a little extra math. But that's okay. And it's all fun. So, what does this get down to? All right, let's break down the basic sets of Halloween haunted attractions, and then we'll get into a little bit of personal storytelling time for me. You have the haunted house / mansion / castle. Usually taking place indoors, visitors may experience intense animatronics, bloody and frightening set pieces, rustic antiques, scary music and sounds, dynamic lighting, fog, costumed actors with elaborate makeup or masks, and other special effects used to create scenes of terror. This, of course, is what the classic Haunted Mansion in the various Disney parks is, and is the one you are most likely to see pop up during the Halloween season, especially in larger cities where you've always got tons of buildings around. This is what 90% of people think about when you talk about haunted attraction. It's what you tend to see the most in movies. It is the standard, and that is because it works. You put the effort in, you put the love in, people will show up. Prototypical haunted house in America can trace its roots to the 1925 painting House by the Railroad by Edward Hooper. As far as your basic visual design. And as we mentioned before, a big trick with them, or a big staple with them, is using older buildings, especially ones that can be easily, with a minimal of redecorating, made to resemble architecture of previous decades or even centuries, to help give you a, hey, this thing's so old, it's had time to absorb energy of the occult and the beyond. It has had time for generations of ghosts to inhabit it. Because, I mean, let's be honest. If you're trying to tell people, oh, this house got built 4 years ago, nobody's going to believe it's had time to gather a bunch of ghosts. Ghosts take time to inhabit a building. You also have the haunted trail or haunted forest, taking place outside in the woods, at a park, or other outside venue. Most haunted trails are close to a mile long and may include small buildings or huts that include various scenes visitors are forced to enter or walk past. This is your haunted cornfield, your clown mazes, alien invasion, or themed around specific popular movies. Again, these tend to be seen more often in rural areas where you have larger stretches of undeveloped land, not to mention actual pre-existing cornfields, in the case of the haunted cornfield, and less full-on buildings, especially ones that are not in regular constant use, whether residential or business. These can be a lot of fun. I've gone on a few of them. Again, it's all about how much heart and soul is put into it by the people running it. The Haunted Hayride is a haunted attraction form of entertainment that takes place during a hayride on a farm, park, or large piece of land. Patrons climb on a wagon filled with hail bays and are driven into the darkness as the tractor driver navigates through brush, paths, cornfields, and throughout the trip, customers may come in contact with out-of-control farm equipment, hearses, actors dressed up as monsters, or traditional characters like the Headless Horseman. It's basically kind of a mix of the haunted corn maze with the vehicle riding aesthetic you would get in a lot of theme park rides. Again, similar to the Haunted Trail, they can be quite excellent when properly set up and the people involved are fully embracing their roles as the masters of the macabre. In places where you've got a lot of coastal land, a lot of docks, a lot of ships that are no longer in use, they have come up with the haunted ship variant, which makes a lot of sense. There have been several iconic horror movies based around haunted ships. Not to mention legends, the Marie Celeste, Flying Dutchman. I mean, it makes sense. So you would say a haunted ship is basically a naval equivalent of a haunted house. Then, of course, you have the dark maze chain mazes. Again, similar to the haunted fields, but usually with more structure to it. Either a lot of freestanding walls designed like your classic labyrinth maze, chain link fences, because those are usually pretty easy to take down and put up if you know what you're doing. Sometimes they might be contained within a full building. Especially if you've got a good empty warehouse, it's easy to set up the temporary walls to make up the maze. This is where you'll get live actors, air cannons, sounds, sprays of waters, moving walls or floors, hanging props, flashing lights. A pure dark maze you might have a couple actors there, partially to guide you, partially to spook you, but the idea is it is so dark you can see nothing. The fear comes from you have no clue if your next step's going to run you up into a wall or into someone else or something else. Again, been in a couple dark mazes. They can be a lot of fun. They're especially good as auxiliary attractions to a classic haunted house. Yeah. And of course, as the industry has evolved and you've gotten older audiences, especially that have grown up with the haunted houses, but also want to push psychological limits because they are older, they're feeling braver, they're feeling more able to deal with frights, you get the extreme haunted houses. Obviously, as we said, this is a variant of the haunted house mansion castle setup. These have more elaborate settings, more sophisticated technology, backstories, Might be interactive, where they have a small escape room. And the actors tend to go from classic, basic, zombie, frightening clown to full-blown, bloody, missing limbs. Setups where the fright isn't just from something jumping out at you, but what it looks like. And the actors are a little less likely to use comedy. Most of these are based on the long-standing urban legend that was never proven, but the idea was that there was a haunted house so extremely scary that nobody ever got to the end of it. But if you did manage to get to the end of it, you would win a cash prize. The original version just said your ticket price would be refunded. Later, it was, you'd get more money than you invested. Nobody has ever actually found proof of that. However, after the legend became famous, certain temporary attractions were set up promoting that nobody gets to the end, but if you manage it, you'll get a reward. Aesthetic, but like a classic corrupt carnival ride, would be rigged at the end. Like, there was technically no winning exit door. So the only way out and to finish the ride was to technically be eliminated. Generally, though, as time has gone on, this has taken the rigged hustle out of it and become just a matter of how scary can we make this without getting sued and shut down. These are the only environments where you may have a contact rule between the guests and the monsters. The bulk of your haunted houses operate on a no contact rule to prevent injury, whether it be somebody trying to fight back or, God forbid, somebody with a heart condition and being grabbed pushes them just slightly past. But the ones that do have full contact do make these rules specifically stated, so everybody knows it is a risk and they can make their own conscious consenting choice. Because that's how we do things. It is still entertainment at its core. You want to make sure everybody's on board. So, let's get down to the personal stuff, folks. Let's get down to the big one. And that is my personal experience. As I said, I've been through several. I have been to the Haunted Mansion ride in Walt Disney World in Orlando on multiple occasions. I've been to various setups in a few different cities. As I said, the Haunted Trails, the Dark Mazes. But my personal favorite, what I consider the icon, my new standard, and that is Haunted Montrose. Haunted Montrose, named after the city, is located in Montrose, Georgia. As of this year in 2025, is not open. There's hopes it will be open next year or maybe the year after. Before we get into the nitty gritty, long story short is that the original owners have decided to retire, and thus they did so at the end of last year, at the end of the 2024 season. However, there has been speculation online, partially from the Haunted Montrose Facebook page itself. Ignore some of the audio. We got kitties trying to be spooky and jump scare me by being noisy. They're getting in the Halloween spirit too. But over the course of this year, there have been rumors that Haunted Montrose may come back. We'll see. But let's get down to it. Haunted Montrose ran for 17 years. And was always a good treat. I went to probably 12 years of it. I missed the first year. I missed a few of the years later on because of other commitments. Sadly, the older you get, the more financial responsibilities you get, the more social responsibilities you get. You can't always find time to do everything you want to do fun-wise. Especially when you have an attraction that is only open a couple days a week. And for only, as I said, about maybe 6 weeks out of the year. But that's okay. That is okay. As we said, Haunted Montrose ran for 17 years. The original setup was centered around a building that had originally been a slaughterhouse, as in the processing of farm animals into meat. Take a little moment. I know it's going to be upsetting for some of our non-meat eating audience. I know you don't like to think about that. Slaughterhouses don't sound like entertainment to you. That's okay. That's okay. Once again, we do not judge you. We do not judge your lifestyle choices. We do not judge your culture. We are simply stating facts. Let's move on. Remember, this is all in the spirit of having fun. That's my little disclaimer. Disclaimer. The Haunted Slaughterhouse. Thus, it was a classic haunted building setup. From the beginning, it employed locals as the actors, and being located in, as I said, Montrose, Georgia, which is a smaller town in Georgia, in middle Georgia, and thus they had, besides the building, a large chunk of land in and around it, which was good not just for parking, but to create an isolated atmosphere. And it worked from the get-go. You enter, you're going through this town that's not super lit up and super bright when the sun goes down. Got a lot of businesses right up next to the haunted attraction that are still doing their normal thing. No, you've got farmland around you. You've got water towers. Heck, during Haunted Montrose, a water tower that clearly did not contain water anymore would actually shoot flame out the top intermittently. See? Setting of atmosphere. It, before you even entered, it gave a sense of the spooky and the isolated. The most iconic character of the slaughterhouse was Pigman and his big old cleaver. Pigman was seen more often than not inside the house, but wandering outside, taking pictures with, and trying to spook people in line, because that's what I'm talking about. That's one of the great things you do when you're running an attraction is, from the get-go, before people even enter, you are working them. You are working with them. You're having fun with them. The experience starts as soon as you get on the property. Chef's kiss to anybody that does that. You get a couple other actors too as time went on, but Pigman was the one everybody looked for. Pigman was who we wanted to take photos with. Pigman was a local celebrity. Good times. More power to Pigman. Now, I'm not going to go super into details about the attraction itself, except to say it did hit that perfect spot of spooky and fun. The actors always gave 100%. The atmosphere was well done, a lot of little touches in the decor, and more importantly, year to year, they would tweak things. Individual rooms would move position. They would change the paint job slightly. Different actors would appear in different places so that the returning customers were never 100% sure what they were going to get. One of my favorite rooms, and we're going to be jumping a little bit, but one of my favorite rooms was they had the classic padded room that you would get in the old school mental hospitals that had on the walls drawn, like hand smeared, possibly in blood, lines from Edgar Allan Poe stories and poetry. Because Edgar Allan Poe is creepy. That's why we love him. If you don't believe me, go way back into the archives. I've done a video on Edgar Allan Poe's literature endeavors. Very good. Now, as we said, the good news is it ran for 17 years. It was successful. Locals loved it. It won awards in the haunted attraction community, including a couple times being best in Georgia. But with that came evolution. They decided to expand it. Soon we got a second building. And thus, whereas the original slaughterhouse had hints that there was some mental patients in there, soon we had a second area that was done up like a full mental hospital. Later, they would add a third section, including a dark maze. Eventually, it became a haunted circus, still completely contained indoor, but a haunted circus, referred to as Havoc 3D, as you were given 3D glasses and some of the walls were done with a 3D paint effect. And honestly, I gotta say, after the first couple years when they really got the vibe for Havoc 3D down, I loved the Slaughterhouse because it was the original, but that was my favorite. Like, that was the one that really, got me into the vibe. The whole evil clown motif. Now, there was a short outdoor section as well. As I said, for a while they had a dark maze, and you would go between buildings. You would go through an outdoor section, a small kind of sneak peek of a corn maze. I think 1 or 2 years, actually, instead of the full enclosed dark maze, did a short corn maze. They did a part where you would go through a bus that was, converted and done up to look abandoned and like somebody had been potentially living in there. Good times. Nice phantom train. You'd hear the... You'd be looking around like, oh my God, is a train going to jump out at me next? They kept you on edge. Eventually, as I said, they hit a formula. At their peak, it was 3 attractions in one. They always had the classic Slaughterhouse. They did actually move the building at one point to the other end of the property to kind of set up the flow between the 3 attractions better and to maximize their parking situation. And that's okay. And the idea was always you'd buy 1 ticket to go through all 3 attractions. This wasn't a 3 lines, pick and choose. It's like, oh, I hope this one's not... No. You start off in 1 attraction and you work your way through all 3. 1 line, 1 ticket, nice and easy. Good times. And that is the glory of it. No matter what they did, no matter how big the Haunted Montrose got, they always stayed true to their roots, which was a local attraction that wanted to be fun, spooky, worth a bit of a drive, and worth the ticket price, but they didn't want to make it too complicated. Yes, they had a little section that sold t-shirts. But, you know, they didn't over-merchandise it. They didn't try to run it more than those several weeks of the year that constitute the Halloween season. They didn't run it every day of the week most years. I think the first couple years they might have done it more often. Again, I'm sorry, I don't have a perfect memory in my head. But it is what it is. You know, they stuck primarily to your Friday, Saturday, Sunday. No matter what day of the year Halloween was on, they would be running on Halloween. A little bit of rain did not dissuade them, as they would say on their official website. Hey, a little rain only adds to the spooky atmosphere. But it was always one ticket. Keep it easy, one ticket, one main line. And whether it was a classic slaughterhouse, mental patients, creepy southern stereotype hillbilly type stuff. Yeah, there were a couple of those. Yeah, I mean, Middle Georgia knows the stereotypes, even among its own. Got to have some fun with that, you know, backwoods person that, you know, they spend a little too much time with their own family, if you know what I mean. If you don't, go find somebody a little older, a little more world-wise. They'll explain it to you. Not something everybody should do. Really not something anybody should do, unless you're trying to be creepy. If you watch enough horror movies, you know the stereotype and the archetype I'm talking about. And that's okay, because it was all in the name of entertainment. Creepy clowns, things hiding in the dark, or the stroby fog maze, as the maze attraction became in later years. It was all good. Always growing, always shifting. Everybody involved always believed in it 100%. And best of all, because I'm going to throw this out there again, just to be thorough, just point out how much they wanted to make sure everybody had a good time. If you got there and decided it was a little too creepy for you, or maybe the little kids, they think they're good until they see it and then they decide they're not quite old enough, they had a nice little side tent, what they called the spook-free zone. Well, you know, gazebo, not full tent, but gazebo set up. None of the actors would approach that area. Little TV set up. People could just sit there and chill, emotionally calm down. Or if they got there and decided they couldn't quite take it, isolate themselves from the frights for a few until their friends did what they wanted, you know, what they felt was fine. It was inclusive. You know, they tried to be as inclusive as possible to all. They had the classic no contact rule. They'd come close, but there was a no contact rule. It was a safe environment. It was everything you wanted a haunted attraction to be. And that is good. I hope it comes back. I hope when it does, that no matter who's running it, again, I don't have all the personal details. I'm not directly involved with Haunted Montrose. I'm not sponsored by them or endorsed by them. I am endorsing them as a fan, that's it. There's no business relationship, except that I've bought many tickets to them. So I don't have all the specific details on the future of it at this time. I will say, though, yeah, as I was saying a second ago, those silly little disclaimers always throw off the train of thought. That is the scariest thing in the world. the legal disclaimers. That when it does come back, it still retains that spirit. It still retains that love of giving people what they want when they come to a haunted attraction. Safe, controlled, but frightening. A place that pulls you into its own little mini reality for a moment, locks you up inside, but not so much that you forget in the back of your mind, it is temporary, it is for fun, I am not actually going to come to harm, so I can cut loose and live in the moment. And that's a great thought to end it with, because that is what Halloween is all about. I know there are some people that have moral and ethical concerns with some of the traditions of Halloween. I know there's people that just plain don't like certain aspects of it because emotionally and mentally they've been through things in their life where they cannot appreciate a fictionalized representation of something close to what they have gone through. Again, as always, we respect everybody's personal journey. But Halloween at its core, that is the best way to sum it up. A place where you can slip into another reality for a short while. Be something else. Be someone else. Whether in costume or not, get an adrenaline rush. Feel the joy that comes with that emotional high of being spooked, knowing it's not going to last and your safe, comfortable reality is just around the corner, right through that exit sign. Or, in case of trick-or-treating, once you go home and close your door. That is Halloween. That is the beauty of Halloween. That is why, no matter what else goes on in my life, I will always be here with a rambling on Halloween Day, and I will always love the holiday. There's clearly a guy that spends way too much of his life thinking about entertainment in all its many forms. He's a guy that enjoys disconnecting from reality for a short while. And so with that, I bid you happy Halloween. Whatever you do tonight, I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you show up next time we go live with another video. And as always, if you'd like me to ramble about anything specific, whether it's next year's Halloween stuff or something throughout the year, feel free to let me know. We got a comments thread. We got a DM system. I am on Twitter. David the Creative Geist. That's who I be. And in the meantimes and in between times, stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay entertained. Happy Halloween, everybody.